to be the buzzword lately, like Robin Conti and John Smith, contributor and editor respectively at Forbes, say from art to music to tacos and toilet paper, these digital assets are selling like the 17th century exotic Dutch tulips, some for millions of dollars. I agree. So, what are these NFTs? Where do you mint or buy one? Can you borrow money against it? Can it be stolen? This and much more in a podcast by Raghu Bala, CEO of Net Objects. Welcome to the Digital Navigator and an episode on NFTs. Enjoy listening to this podcast. So, on this lovely morning, I want to start with the subject that we all are very curious about. And I call this everything you need to know about non-fungible tokens. So, let me quickly, get into the subject itself. NFTs today are a buzzword in the blockchain crypto world. What with artists converting their work into NFTs, billionaires creating NFTs out of tweets and songs and what have you. So my first question this morning to you, Raghu, is what are NFTs and why have they become so popular?
So first of all, I want to kind of step back and talk about tokens, and then I'll talk about non-fungible tokens. So tokens are cryptocurrency, and this cryptocurrency can represent some value. So most of the cryptocurrency out in the world, a lot of them, I sorry to say, a lot of them don't have really any tangible value because they don't have a tangible project or purpose behind them. But then for those tokens which have a purpose behind them, those tokens have got real value to a lot of people, and those tokens merit investing in and so on. So in tokens, there are actually three varieties, but let's talk about the two most popular varieties: fungible tokens and non-fungible tokens. So in the case of fungible tokens, it's similar to saying that I've got a dollar bill and you have got a dollar bill. So now, Anita, if I were to exchange my dollar bill with you, the only difference is this insignificant thing called the serial number. The serial number on my dollar bill and your dollar bill might differ, and that only comes into question when there are counterfeit bills and all that. Let's just set that aside for a second. So there's no real difference in value. Your dollar bill is equal to my dollar bill. That's a fungible token. Non-fungible token means if let's say you have a non-fungible token NFT and I have a non-fungible token NFT, then my non-fungible token might represent my car and your non-fungible token represents your car. So let's say that you have a more expensive car and I have a less expensive car. So now we cannot just swap those tokens one for one because they represent different values. So that's the world of non-fungible tokens. So most of the initial foray into tokenization of assets was in terms of uh, fungible tokens. That's the kind of boom that we saw in 2017. And then we went into something called the crypto winter in 2018, 19, and part of 20. And then second half of 2020, it kind of took off again. And now one of the concepts that people have started to realize value is the concept of the non-fungible tokens, which is associating tokens with certain classes of assets. I have my own reasons to believe that that's because in the US at least, these fungible tokens have been, for the most part, considered as securities. And so exchanging in fungible tokens has become very difficult. So people have turned their attention to non-fungible tokens, which is harder to prove that it's a security. It's more of it's still an asset, but it's tied to usually some sort of work of art or memorabilia or something of value. So now your question was, why are non-fungible tokens hot all of a sudden? Actually, Net Objects, for example, started working non-fungible tokens in about 2018, and they're hot now because I think people, because of the security laws, and at least in America, people have turned their attention to them. Second, there was a kind of a milestone project, which is Dapper Labs and NBA starting to tokenize their assets in the form of non-fungible tokens that caught the attention of a lot of the millennials, and everyone is sort of hot about these videos and other things going on the NBA Top Shots application, such that it's a watershed moment that caused the world of non-fungible tokens to take off. So usually there's a catalyst for something to take off, and that was the catalyst. Now everyone is jumping on board in terms of artists, in terms of painters and other people who create art, memorabilia owners, and other folks. And so net objects itself has got several use cases, but I'll talk about that later. But that's the key moment of the NBA Top Shots project. And then now almost everyone is beginning to realize the value that non-fungible tokens bring to the table, because what happens is they literally create liquidity for a very illiquid market. And whenever you create liquidity, that tends to create a lot of transactions, and then the speculators, and that gets the market going. So that's the reason why it's hot.
So help me understand, where and how can you mint a NFT token or buy an NFT token? I think there are two sides of the coin, right?
Yes. So the minting of an NFT token is more of an engineering exercise, in the sense that anyone who knows the coding and other things can mint an NFT token. Now the question is whether that NFT token has got any. When I'm saying NFT token to make it easier for listeners to understand, but non-fungible token NFT. So I don't need to use the word token again. But anyway, whenever you mint an NFT, you anyone can mint it, but the question is whether it's got any value and what it's tied to. Initially, what happened was NFTs were sold on certain websites like Rarify, Super Rare, and OpenSea, and so on. These are marketplaces. So the way for listeners to understand is these are equivalent of your eBay or Amazon, where almost every product is sold. It's a kind of a flea market of products. At Net Objects, what we are doing is somewhat different. We don't think that selling NFTs in a kind of a general marketplace, like several other people, is the right way to go about it. It can be okay for a secondary sale, but for a primary sale, we are focusing on big brand names. And these brand names have got their brand equity to protect and so on. So we are creating customized storefronts. And the only way to get these NFTs is through these storefronts. So we believe that for branded goods, those who have got some brand equity, they want to protect their user experience and how their NFT is displayed, shopped for, and things like that. And they don't want necessarily their competitors or other undesirable products to be mixed in with their offering. They would want these kind of custom curated storefronts, and that's the business that we are in. And then in the secondary market, whoever buys those tokens, just like you can buy something from let's say Armani or a Gucci store, and then you can go and sell it on eBay. There are always these sites that allow you to sell secondhand goods, and we look at the Rarify and Super Rare and OpenSeas of the world as these flea markets for selling NFTs. So for us, there are sort of two sides of the coin. One is secondary market, one is the primary market, and we want to focus on the high premium primary market.
Having said that, they say blockchain is safe and it's a single source of truth and all that. And I've also heard you say that NFTs enjoy uniqueness, tracking, transparency, given that all this is a part of the blockchain. Now, is my understanding correct, or can you shed some light over this about the uniqueness, tracking, transparency piece, which comes from the blockchain angle?
The way I look at NFTs today, there is a way to issue NFTs or mint NFTs, and there is a way not to do it. And I feel most of the world is doing it somewhat incorrectly. So let me explain what I mean by that. So NFTs can be minted for any particular reason, but usually it has to uh, maintain some tangible value. So, for instance, if I mint an NFT about a basketball dunk that is takes place on NBA, and that's what NBA Top Shots is about, then that video asset is what they're basing the NFT's value on. So if the video asset is something that is rare and collectible and so on, then you could potentially make a case that, hey, you know what, this is something that is pretty awesome that we got to, we can base the value of the NFT based on this asset class. Now, the part that most of the NFT creators are not focusing on is one of ownership. So what they're doing is they have a piece of asset, might be video, might be image, might be whatnot, might be a physical product, and then they are generating the NFT based on that. Now, there are two parts, or maybe two or three parts, that I'm not very convinced of with the current model, and I think NetObjects is taking some steps to value them a little bit better. So first of all, when you generate or mint an NFT based on some underlying asset, um, first of all, you have to ensure that the underlying asset and the NFT are linked in some way. So someone cannot create counterfeit versions of that NFT. So for example, a lot of people create these video assets or image assets and then create an NFT. Anyone can knock those off. So how do you prevent that? So there has to be some anti-counterfeiting technology that could be in the form of a overlay or a watermark or a tag when it comes to physical assets, overlay and watermark for digital assets that would link the NFT to the object. For example, NetObjects has got a customer called Gem Identity, which issues NFTs for diamonds. Every diamond is laser inscribed, and so the laser inscription matches the record in the NFT. So at least there's a kind of a tie between the physical and the virtual or cyber world. The second part of it is that on ownership. So just because you mint an NFT and put it in someone's wallet, currently the standard is if I own the NFT, if I have it in my wallet, that means I am the owner of the NFT. Now I want to challenge that assumption a little bit in the sense that let's take the example of a asset. Let's say I've got a diamond. I want to borrow against the diamond. So I go to a pawn shop and I say I've got a diamond worth $1,000 and I want to borrow $500 against it. Pawn shop will hold the diamond, give you $500, and then give you a receipt, and then later on say that if you return the $500, I'll give you back your diamond. For the period that the pawn shop holds your diamond, that does not mean that they are the owner. They've got a lien against the diamond, and if you don't repay against certain conditions and terms and so on, then they will repossess the diamond. But as long as those conditions are met, maybe it might be interest and whatnot being paid, you are still the owner of the diamond. Same thing happens in property ownership. You own a property and then you rent it out to someone. Someone occupying the property or having possession of the property does not mean that they own the property. So in the NFT marketplace currently, they've got this very weak assumption of ownership in the sense that someone who possesses the NFT means that they are the owner. And I challenge that assumption because for the examples that I've shown, possession does not mean ownership. So what we are trying to attempt to do is to link ownership to the NFT and also ensure that the linkage from NFT to the actual asset is through some technically undefeatable method in the form of a watermark or a tag or something like that. So those two aspects are very important.
So, if possession is not ownership, uh, can NFTs be stolen or resold without my permission?
That's a good question. So right now, most people who are in the NFT and token space are somewhat sophisticated. They understand the concept of a wallet. They understand the concept of transferring the asset. But we do hear of break-ins and people, maybe not protecting their wallets and someone transferring assets out of their wallet to some other wallet. And here comes the issue, and this is a kind of a dicey issue, and let me state it very carefully. So the whole purpose of cryptocurrency and so on is it's based on anonymity. So if you look at the Swiss banking system, it is very known for its anonymity. So cryptocurrency banking system is like the Swiss banking system. There's anonymity. So as long as you own a wallet, I own a wallet, nobody asks for your name, your address, or who you are, or whatever it might be. So that anonymity is good, but it's also bad in one way. It is bad in the sense that a lot of bad actors play in the system, like drug dealers or smugglers or other types of people who want to move money and so on. They tend to misuse this anonymity as a means of transferring funds and so on, also avoiding taxes and things of that nature. What we are trying to do is this anonymity also causes problems, because let's say I've got a valuable asset, and let me just pose this question that I always talk to customers about. Let's say John Doe has a car and a house. If I ask John Doe, can you prove that you own your car? He'll say, yeah, I can prove it. It's in the Department of Motor Vehicles. It says John Doe owns this Honda Civic. Okay, now if I go to John Doe and say, do you own this house? He can say, yes, go to the city records or the title company. I'll show John Doe owns 123 Main Street. So there's a property record. But if I ask John Doe, hey, you know what? Do you own this diamond ring or this Rolex watch? There's nothing that says that John Doe owns the diamond ring or Rolex watch that he can prove in a court of law. There's nothing. There's no global registry. So that is one very, very, very big weakness currently in the marketplace. And your question was, can someone steal my NFT? So my point to this is, yes, let's say someone steals your NFT, but as long as we have a global registry which says that this belongs to John Doe and that other person is not John Doe and has to prove that they are John Doe, as long as you put that onus of proof, then you can steal whatever NFT you want, but you still are not the owner. So you cannot really pass it along very easily, because whoever is going to take possession of it next is going to say, are you the legitimate owner? And it'll show in the records that you are not. And then that would thwart the purpose of stealing and transferring ownership when it's recorded on the blockchain. So the NFT, as much as it's linked to blockchain, it's not leveraging blockchain's biggest value, which is a single source of truth, and it does not talk about ownership. It does not talk about ownership because people want the pseudo anonymity to be in place, but that also defeats the purpose at the same time. Like if I paid $1 million for an NFT, I want the records to say that I'm the owner, and it does not say that. And so I think of that as a big weakness. And in history, we have shown that whenever we go from old technologies or old means of doing business to new means of doing business, we always have to build a bridge. And the bridge is, in the old world, not everything might be right, but one or two things are right for sure, which is there is proof of ownership, there are proper titles, and so on. And those aspects need to manifest in the new world where everything is Wild West. Just move this currency from wallet to wallet and you start to own it. That by itself is a very loose set of governance that may not be good, because once you lose possession, that means you lose ownership, and that's actually, if you look at it, quite a detriment, or it's not as strong as it should be on the ownership aspect. So I have the answer to your question. It can be stolen, but we need better governance.
And I agree with you that, the bridge needs to be built, but looks like we are still at a very nascent stage of, this building the bridge aspect. So that brings me to my next question. Is there a registry for NFTs where we could, go through anti-money laundering, and know your customer rituals before we actually, go ahead and actually register saying that this NFT belongs to me, and future, people could actually look at the history and say, yes, this NFT passed from one hand to another hand to another hand. So is there a registry available today, or is there an organization that is building this registry?
So this is another good point, and one of the areas where as a company, NetObjects is focusing on. So we've got one customer called Gem Identity. It has got over $5 billion worth of diamonds, over 700,000 diamonds on the blockchain. Those who are interested can visit Verify My Diamond, and there's a daily total of diamonds on the blockchain that is shown. And we've got 8 of the top 10 manufacturers and big companies like eBay as partners for selling those diamonds, and only mined diamonds, not synthetic diamonds. And we also maintain the provenance of those diamonds. So, for example, we are the only diamond registry that I know of which maintains the ownership and provenance. And when we maintain ownership, we have to also record the KYC AML, which is know your customer and anti-money laundering, to prevent bad actors from entering the system, but also to prove that that particular person is the legitimate owner of a diamond. Just like you own your car and your house, you now want a registry to own your diamonds, and this is the place to register. It costs $50 to register, but when you're talking about a asset which is $5,000 or $10,000, it's a very reasonable cost, because most of us, let's say in the US context, we drive a car and we pay close to $500 to $600 a year in terms of registration for the rights to drive the car. So registration in a registry, which is the Department of Motor Vehicles. So same thing here, but we are charging $50 one time when you register your ownership. So we have created a registry for ownership of diamonds. Similarly, we will create registry for ownership of other assets, and other people will start to develop similar registries. And that's one of the big use cases of blockchain, because that registry is now decentralized. It cannot be fudged, it cannot be modified in any way. People begin to realize that global registries are important, and net objects, NFTs are unique in the sense that we do these registries for you, and that will hold your value much longer than the way people are minting NFTs elsewhere.
So, in a world where NFT meets decentralized finance, can NFTs be used as collateral for loans?
Yeah, so that's a good question. And let me just quickly define decentralized finance a little bit for listeners. Finance by itself is currently controlled by institutions, banks, lending companies, finance companies, and so on. But decentralized finance, if you sort of like break it down, involves the following 10 categories: asset management, compliance, analytics and risk management, derivatives and synthetic assets, infrastructure development, payment solutions, borrowing and lending, insurance, digital identity, and also decentralized organizations. So you brought about this concept of lending. So lending is one of the DeFi sort of prongs or dimensions. So when you talk about money, there's always borrowing and lending. It's an age-old concept which goes back hundreds of years to the origins of money. And so when we talk about NFTs, which is a store of value, then we want to see whether one can not only buy and sell NFTs, but also borrow and lend against NFTs. So this is an area which is underserved, and NetObjects is taking a leadership position in this particular area and partnering with certain institutions, which are lending institutions, to kind of lend against NFT. So let's say you buy an NFT, and that NFT is tied to some piece of artwork. And now let's say that that artwork is worth $1 million. So the NFT is worth $1 million because the digital representation of the piece of art. Now, if I wanted to borrow, the lender might say, I cannot give you the full 100% value. They never do. So they could say that, okay, I give you 60% loan to asset value. And so you can now raise 600,000 against $1 million piece of art, and then go about your business of using it for whatever purpose that you might have at hand. So we are starting to do this sort of a concept in the diamond market, with loans ranging from, let's say, 5,000 and up, and partnering with financial institutions. So even though we are a diamond registry at the core, that is simply a building block towards what we are really. We are asset-based lending DeFi institution. In the case of Gem Identity, which is one of our joint venture partners.
What is your advice on NFT strategies for global brands which are in the luxury segment?
So for global brands in the luxury segment, I think we are in the midst of something very, very significant. And I think if people sort of don't pay attention, you could miss a huge opportunity. And let me define that opportunity a little bit more. The old economy is uh, like a bullock cart. It's moving at 3-day speed. Crypto economy is moving at light speed, 3 seconds. So this is why the old economy will fail ultimately. So the old economy companies will start to diminish, because ultimately the world cannot run at 3 days or 3 seconds. It's a multiple orders of magnitude difference in terms of speed and other things. Now, for luxury brands or any brand which is operating in the old economy, now they have to make a decision. Do I continue operating in the old economy, or do I start to take this new economy seriously and move my brand towards the new economy? So, what does the new economy represent? That means if I have a handbag, I'm Louis Vuitton or I'm Hermes in France, I want to now transact with my handbag. The handbag is a physical object. Now, does the physical object have a digital twin? And that's why net objects at the very fundamental core is a bridging technology to take a physical object and make it a digital twin. Just like you have a Facebook account, which is the digital twin of you, these inanimate objects will have digital twins. Now, the digital twin, what it does, it is linked to a blockchain, and it will keep a record of this handbag to say that who's the owner, when it was manufactured, is new or it's used, is genuine or fake. All of this information can be captured in the blockchain. So what happens is you buy the Hermes bag or the Louis Vuitton bag, and now you can prove ownership. And tomorrow, when you want to sell it, the resale value will be even higher. When you start to have a provenance of where it came from, the history of ownership, and all of these things, that also makes it exclusive. So, what can a brand do to kind of have a bigger hold over their asset? And that would be a record on blockchain. So that is what we are talking about. And also inside the fabric of the materials, we are putting a tag to link the physical handbag to the blockchain record. So with these two very important links, the knockoff people cannot copy that. Then you have a kind of you can then say that this is the original genuine branded product, and this is the fake one, and that's why I am $1,000 and you're $50. So you need those kind of differentiators, and that's what we suggest that brands do when they issue these NFTs and so on. They have to get into the marketplace for the reasons why the whole business is being disrupted, but also there's a right way of doing it, and then we are advising companies on how to go about doing it.
So, what are the 2 or 3 trends that one needs to kind of, keep a lookout, or what do you foresee as a, top 2 or 3 trends in the NFT area?
So I think, like what I said, this concept of ownership will become big. The concept of, unfortunately, counterfeiting will become big, and so we need anti-counterfeiting measures. I think that's going to be very big. The third one, which I think a lot of people are not paying attention to, that we have taken kind of extreme interest in is one of how an NFT is being priced. So there are literally two pricing models. One is a fixed price and one is auction. Those are the two models that people are using. But there's a third one, which is people are ignoring, and that's what we are starting to do. And the third model is something called dynamic pricing. So in dynamic pricing, what we're doing is it is pricing that is based on scarcity and also based on supply and demand. So let's say that I give you a limited edition book, which is signed by the author. The book might be printed like 1,000 times, but there's a limited edition which is signed by the author. There might only be 10 of them. So now what happens is, how do I market these 10 and what do I price these 10 limited edition books at? So I actually got this idea from an art gallery that I visited in Vegas not long ago. And I went up to this art gallery and they have some limited edition artwork, which is a lighting based artwork, like the inks, are luminescent ink and so on. So the artwork looks different under different light conditions and so on. So I asked the person there, how much does art go for? And he said, we only print 250 of these worldwide, and they're quite expensive. I said, okay, tell me the price. And he said, it's $6,000 a piece. I said, okay, that's not bad, $6,000. It's not like someone asking me $1 million. But he said, wait, that's $6,000 when we start selling the first one. But then, as the number of these pieces reduces in the market, let's say out of the 250 pieces that they produce, 240 are sold, there's only 10 pieces left, or only 100 pieces left, the scarcity will start to raise the price. So the first piece might be 6,000. The last piece might sell for $250,000. And along the way, because of scarcity, the price changes in value. So I said, wow, that's an interesting model. So those are types of interesting models that I think we could see happen in the NFT space as well, where if you have limited edition objects, they can be sold at different price points. And I think that's an area that the current NFT models are ignoring. So there are a few areas that people are ignoring that we feel that we can make a huge difference and add a lot of value as a company.
So, as a last question from my side, I know you have spoken about net objects throughout this conversation, but just to wrap up, could you, just take us through how brands could leverage the net objects platform to develop their own NFT strategy? If you could give us one example of, you don't have to really take the brand name, but how a particular brand is kind of taking this NFT strategy to the next level.
So currently, there is a sports network and there is a car auctioneer that we are talking to. So both of these represent branded or a name brand. In the case of sports network, they've got name brand soccer teams. In the case of car auctioneer, they are one of the largest in the world, and they have got a lot of car assets that they are selling through the auction network. Now, for us as a company, how are we impacting their business? So in both cases, both of them have got assets. In the case of the soccer teams and so on, the assets are images, likeness of their stars. Each of the teams that they represent have got brand equity. And so these assets are latent assets. Just imagine you've got assets lying around your house, not producing any income, and you could start to generate income from them. Wouldn't you want to do that as a soccer team or uh, as a network with a lot of what do you call it, like a car auctioneer with a lot of car assets? I would definitely welcome the opportunity to generate income out of my latent assets just sitting idle. So we are telling these brands, like, you can let it sit idle if you want to, but you can also start to monetize them and let me show you how to monetize them. So we are helping these brands monetize their assets, and that gives them a new revenue stream without putting in a lot of capital. So I think that's very attractive to a lot of the brands, especially those with digital assets. For physical assets, it's more of brand protection, and also creating a more of a cachet around their brands, such that when you buy a very expensive handbag or something like that, part of the appeal is now you've got this record on blockchain, and you've got this kind of passport of ownership and all of the accoutrements that come along with buying the branded good versus something which is not branded. So it's a bit more exclusive and creates, manifest the brand equity in a way that was not possible before in a global registry. So that's the for the physical goods. That's what we think the opportunity in the NFT space.
Thank you, Raghu. Thank you for spending a lot of time with us and taking our listeners through, everything that they would want to know about non-fungible tokens. And if we have more questions, we'll probably circle back to you and record another podcast. But this has been a very interesting conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and appreciate the call, and welcome listeners to contact NetObjects, and we can go through a brand strategy for your independent organizations, and I think it'll be a fun space to get into. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the podcast on NFTs. Do you have a question or a feedback about the podcast itself? Do drop us a note at marketing@netobjects.com, and we would love to hear from you.